Well, good afternoon or good morning for some of you. I'd like to welcome you to the Technical Assistance webinar for the Federally Recognized Tribes Extension Program, NOFO, which was published on April 22nd. Your tribal extension team includes myself as National Program Leader and Program Specialist, Ara Cassidy. During this technical assistance webinar, we will discuss the NOFO for the FRTEP, in which applications are due on June 8th by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Topics we will cover today include a NIFA overview, a program overview, application details and documents, application evaluation process, tips for success, and additional information and resources. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. Questions can be entered into the Q&A tab, or you can come off mute when prompted. You can always contact Ara or myself with any additional questions. This presentation is being recorded, and we appreciate if you remain muted until the Q&A portion of the webinar. The National Institute of Food and Agriculture is the extramural science funding agency within USDA's Research, Education, and Economics mission area. NIFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture. NIFA provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences and technologies reach the people who can put them into practice. These programs and initiatives will have the greatest impact when these programs put American farmers, ranchers, and foresters first. The FRTEP will establish an extension presence and support extension outreach on federally recognized Indian reservations and tribal jurisdictions of federally recognized tribes. The program provides funding for extension programs that address the unique needs of tribal communities and supports the development and delivery of informal education and outreach activities, aiming to improve the quality of life and economic well-being of individuals and families on tribal lands. Examples of extension outreach activities may include youth development programs, including 4-H for tribal youth, farm and ranch productivity and management, management of natural resources, economic and workforce development, and human health and well-being. This NOFO will begin a new 4-year continuation funding cycle. The project director and/or co-PD must attend one PD meeting during each project year. NIFA encourages projects involving innovative agricultural technologies, including artificial intelligence. On December 30th, Secretary Rollins introduced priorities for future USDA-funded research and development through USDA Secretary's Memorandum 1078-20. These priorities of increasing profitability, expanding markets, protecting farms, promoting soil health, and improving human health reflect a focused effort to strengthen national security, protect U.S. agriculture, and support American farmers, ranchers, and consumers. USDA recognizes programs and initiatives will have the greatest impact when these programs and initiatives put American farmers, ranchers, and foresters first by solving the most pressing challenges they face, protecting America's food, fuel, and fiber supply to enhance national security, supporting production of healthy and safe food for consumers, expanding and developing domestic markets, training the next generation of agriculturalists, and fueling innovation to keep American farmers at the forefront of productivity. The key information for the FRTEP NOFO includes a program code, which is LP, program code name, FRTEP, the assistance listing number, 10.500, project type, extension projects, grant type, standard, application deadline, June 8th, 2026. Grant duration is 48 months. Anticipated number of awards is 37, and the minimum and maximum award amount is $102,000. Institutions eligible for the FRTEP include 1862, 1890, and 1994 land-grant colleges and universities. Please visit NIFA's land-grant university directory to view a list of NIFA land-grant colleges and universities. Land-grant colleges and universities may subcontract to organizations not eligible to apply, provided such organizations are necessary for the conduct of the project. USDA will not accept competitive applications for grants and cooperative agreements submitted for dangerous gain-of-function research as defined in Section 8 of Executive Order 14292. In addition, please review pertinent executive orders, paying particular attention to those signed in January 2025. The application deadline is June 8th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please try to submit the previous day in case you encounter errors uploading. Also, please note the deadline time is Eastern Time, so plan accordingly. Applications will not be accepted after 5 p.m. Eastern. Duplicate or multiple submissions are not allowed. NIFA will disqualify both applications if an applicant submits duplicate or multiple submissions. Duplicate submissions are those proposals submitted to a specific grant program more than once. For example, a proposal is submitted twice because you weren't sure it went through the first time or saw that some attachments were not PDF files. NIFA will accept only one of those submissions. Multiple submissions are identical proposals submitted to multiple grant programs. For example, if you currently have a Tribal Colleges Extension Program Capacity Applications Award, you cannot submit a FRTEP proposal for the same project. Or should I say the same identical project. This is an extension project type. Extension projects conduct programs and activities that deliver science-based knowledge and informal educational programs to people, enabling them to make practical decisions. Extension projects must address one or more of the following key strategic actions: support non-formal education to increase food and agricultural literacy. Sorry about that. Support non-formal education to increase food and agricultural literacy of youths and adults, promote science-based agricultural literacy by increasing understanding and use of food and agricultural science data, information, and programs, build science-based capability in people to engage audiences and enable informed decision-making, develop new applications of instructional tools and curriculum structures that increase technical competency and ensure global competitiveness, offer non-formal learning programs that increase accessibility to new audiences, and develop programs that increase public knowledge and citizen engagement, leading to actions that protect or enhance the nation's food supply, agricultural productivity, community vitality, and/or public health and well-being. These projects should lead to measurable documented changes in learning actions or conditions. In addition, this is a standard grant type. Standard grants support original extension projects managed by its own personnel. Grant funds are not required to be shared with other project partners. The following costs are not permitted. No indirect costs. Entertainment, including tickets to shows or sporting events. Meals, except when provided to maintain the continuity of a meeting. Alcoholic beverages. Costs associated with banquets and award ceremonies. Awards and certificates of achievement. Expenses not directly related to the program, for example, childcare services, kitchen help, etc. Renovation and refurbishment of research, extension, or an education space, tuition remission, and incentives. Please consult the 2 CFR 200, the Code of Federal Regulations, and NIFA's policy guide for information on unallowable costs, or contact me or the administrative point of contact in your current award if you have any questions. There is no match required for the FRTEP. Okay, so now we'll get into some application details and documents. So application changes from prior year. NIFA is now requiring the use of Science CV to create biosketches and current and pending forms for key personnel. All key personnel must complete and certify the common form for biographical sketch and the common form for current and pending support using Science CV and submit the certified form at time of application. Biosketches and current and pending forms must be certified for all key personnel, and the PDF should be included in the application package. And from what I understand, we've had a few people go through the process, and it does take a while to get registered and get everything in. So if you start now, that would probably be a good thing because it will take a while to do. The NOFO is available online at the following web address. The application deadline, again, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on June 8th. It's submitted through grants.gov, and all documents and attachments must be in PDF format. The total funding available in fiscal year 26 is $44 million, and your maximum award amount is $102,000. The key components of your application includes a project summary or abstract, the project narrative, the bibliography, data management plan, a memorandum of understanding, a budget and budget justification, as well as other documents. With the bibliography, you should see the NIFA Grants application guide for information regarding the format of citations. The bibliography is not part of the project narrative page limitation, and you will include this bibliography in field 9 within grants.gov. Other documents may be letters of support from tribal partners to be included under field 12, other attachments. These letters of support are not required, and they also must be submitted in PDF format. All documents, forms, and attachments must be in PDF format, or the application will be rejected in the case of required documents or scored without these items. So now we're just going to go through some of the key documents. So the project summary must show how the project goals align with the goals of the FRTEP. The project summary must include the project title and must be descriptive of the project and the tribe served. So you'll want to include the name of the tribe that you're working with in the title. Also, must include a concise project description not to exceed 250 words, which includes a statement of project objectives, the name of the tribe to be served, and affiliated tribes or organizations of PDs and co-PDs, and then indicate if the FRTEP award has been received in previous years. The project narrative has a 15-page limit of text, which will be strictly enforced. These 15 pages should be at a 1.5 spacing and 1-inch margins, 12-point Times New Roman font. You can include up to 3 additional pages for figures and tables. Tables may be single-spaced with font no smaller than 11 points Times New Roman. Applicants should organize the project narrative using the sections below and include the section titles as prompts for each section. Each of the 9 sections of the project narrative includes questions or prompts to guide your writing. The following 3 slides gives a brief overview of the expectations of each section. Please be sure to review the project narrative in the NOFO for additional prompts. The evaluation of proposals is tied directly to the project narrative. So within the project narrative, we have the introduction, in which you will provide a brief introduction to the land-grant institution's cooperative extension service and the tribal community to be served. Describe the current problem, situation, or opportunity to be addressed and explain why it is important. Discuss the project's alignment with the land-grant institution's long-range goals and the commitment of the applicant's institution and key personnel to execute the project. The second section is rationale and significance. Explain how the project addresses community needs and concerns and enhances participants' lives. And describe the significance of the extension project to U.S. agriculture, noting any critical impact on human health and well-being and/or rural communities. The third section, community and audience analysis, will provide evidence that the applicant has gathered input from the tribe to understand and align with the needs and concerns of the community. The fourth section, objectives and anticipated outcomes, provide a clear, concise, and logically numbered list of project objectives. Describe the anticipated outcomes associated with each of the project objectives. The approach section clearly and concisely states the activities the project team will implement to accomplish each of the stated objectives, as well as describe how resources and personnel will be used to conduct the project. In addition, an outline for the process of review by an IRB or IACUC if activities involving human subjects or vertebrate animals are planned at any time during the proposed project. If the project involves extension activities using vertebrate animals under the jurisdiction or control of the institution, outline the process for review by an institutional animal care and use committee, the IACUC. The sixth section is collaborative relationships. Detail any collaborative work or plans for cooperation with a 1994 land grant institution, tribal department, tribal outreach office, and/or other tribal entities. Describe how FRTEP personnel will build or continue building relationships with their partners. The seventh section is the project timeline. So you will want to illustrate the progress and successful implementation of the project over the 4-year award period by providing an integrated timeline of project activities, major milestones, assessment, and reporting. With the timeline, you should plan for a tentative project start date in September of 2026 and develop the project timeline accordingly. If key or other personnel must be hired to advance the project, address the timeline for hiring and how the project will progress in the event of delayed hiring. Address the timeline for IRB and/or IA-Cook review if applicable. And the use of a table or a logic model is acceptable for this section. For the project evaluation section, explain how project activities and outcomes will be measured to determine the extent to which the stated objectives have been achieved. Describe how quantitative metrics, feedback from project stakeholders, and participant success stories will be used to demonstrate the impact of the project on the target audience and convey value to stakeholders. And lastly, we ask that you provide a summary of previous work with the tribe served. There are different prompts for applicants with no prior FRTEP or tribal extension project, as well as with current or previous FRTEP or tribal extension projects. Please be sure to review this section as well as any other section carefully, as there is additional prompts in the NOFO under each one of these sections. A data management plan is required for this program. Applicants should clearly articulate how the project director and co-PDs plan to manage and disseminate the data generated by the project. The DMP must clearly describe the expected data type and format, plans for storing and preserving the data during and after the project, and the procedures for data access, sharing, and protection. The DMP must not exceed 2 1.5 spaced pages, and it will be considered during the merit review process, so it must be included as a PDF attachment under Field 12 of the application. A memorandum of understanding with the tribe served outlining the responsibilities of both the land grant institution's FRTEP project and the tribe is required. The MOU must include a detailed scope of work for both the tribe and the land grant institution. The MOU will be considered during the merit review process, so it must be included as a PDF attachment in Field 12 of the application. So for the budget, it is a little different this year for those of you who have submitted in the past. This year, you will prepare a budget and budget justification for each of the 4 years of the project, and each year will be $102,000. The cumulative 4-year budget is $408,000. Keep in mind that indirect costs are not permitted. With the budget justification, a detailed budget narrative should be provided for each project year. There should be a direct correlation between the items in the budget and the activities described described in the project narrative and the budget justification. Each item in the budget must be justified in the proposal. Costs, for example, salaries and wages, materials, equipment, travel, must be broken down and itemized rather than shown as lump sums. While budgets should account for necessary travel, virtual or hybrid meetings may be considered. With subawards, you must include a budget and budget narrative for each year they are part of the grant. Then for the project director meeting, the PD and or co-PD must attend one PD meeting during each project year. Reasonable travel expenses must be included as part of the project budget. Budget and cost effectiveness are incredibly important. Please do not provide lump sums with general descriptions. For example, PD meeting, $1,500. Materials for extension activities, $5,000, etc. Please break down these costs for each. For example, PD meeting, airfare travel equals $400. Per diem, $100 per day times 5 days. Lodging, $120 a night for 4 nights. Please reach out if you have any questions about preparing the budget or budget justification. NIFA only accepts electronic submission of applications through grants.gov. Once again, application documents must be in the PDF file format to be accepted by NIFA. Please also do not password protect them. Do not submit them as Google files where we may need to ask permission. Everything has to be in PDF format. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about the application evaluation process. So in the evaluation process, there are generally 4 steps. So applications are assigned for review to at least 3 reviewers with expertise in the proposed topic. Reviewers will produce individual reviews of each application, evaluating the strengths and weaknesses. These written reviews are used to begin panel discussions with other reviewers serving on the peer review panel. And through these discussions, peer review panelists come to consensus on the final ranking and rating of applications. The peer review panel will use these 8 criteria to evaluate proposals. The criteria below are not equal in merit, but are listed in descending order of importance. The following 3 slides give a brief overview of the evaluation criteria. Please be sure to review the project evaluation section in the NOFO for additional information. The evaluation of proposals is tied directly to the project narrative. The first evaluation criteria, and most important, is potential for advancing the quality of tribal extension. In this section, the proposal will be evaluated on assessing the project's likelihood of having an impact upon and advancing the quality of food, agriculture, natural resources, workforce development, and youth development by strengthening institutional capacities to meet clearly delineated needs in tribal communities. Second most important is previous work. Previous work It considers previous work with the tribe or tribal community through a FRTEP tribal extension or other work with the tribe or tribal community, including the extent to which the previous project met or exceeded stated project objectives. The project shows continuity of work from prior extension projects or other projects with the tribe or tribal community and shows the benefit to stakeholders. Third criteria, proposed approach and cooperative linkages. This evaluates the soundness of the proposed approach, including objectives, methodology, timetable, expected outcomes, and identification and dissemination of project impacts. Project objectives, activities, and outcomes are clearly described, appropriate, aligned, and are relevant to the participants, tribal community, and Indian country. A clear plan is articulated for project management. The fourth criteria, institutional capability and capacity building. This gauges the institution's capability to implement and provide the support required to advance and sustain extension outreach capacity. The extent to which the MOU with the tribe served provides a framework for successful collaboration and outreach is included. The next evaluation criteria is key personnel. This assesses the adequacy of the number and qualifications of key personnel and the extent to which key personnel have provided continuity of service to the project and have sufficient expertise and time to implement project objectives, establish and maintain partnerships, and assess and disseminate project outcomes and impacts. The next criteria is the budget and cost effectiveness, which gauges the extent to which the budget clearly allocates sufficient resources to carry out extension activities that will lead to desired outcomes. Budget line items are sufficiently itemized and justified to determine the necessity and reasonableness of the costs to carry out project activities and achieve project objectives, as well as the extent to which the project maximizes the use of limited resources and optimizes educational value for the dollars. The project evaluation criteria assesses the proposed project evaluation and performance monitoring plans, including evaluation methods, impact assessment, and communicating feedback from stakeholders. And in the data management plan, it evaluates the soundness of the institution's DMP, that the DMP is appropriate, clearly described, and feasible. Well, the timeline of competitive programs is usually an 8 to 9 month process, not including the writing and submission of the NOFO for review by administration, which can take an additional 4 to 6 months. Please note that this year the timeline is very much compressed. Instead of 6 to 9 months, the team has approximately 4 months after applications are due to make awards prior to funding being swept back to Congress on September 30th of 2026. If awarded, your responsiveness to inquiries and requests will be crucial to the award process. And now I'd like to turn this over to Ara, who will talk about tips for success.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, so before you start writing, if you haven't started that process already, many of you already ahead of the game and started that. But this just sort of general tips before you start writing your proposal. Some things to consider, if your topic is appropriate for this program, or is there better for another program. This is something you can really consider. Like it depends on your project. So that way you don't waste your time if you're might be applying for the wrong program. As for example, if you're heavily focusing on perhaps updating your facilities in some sort of way to form, then that probably is going to be better fit, for example, a research facility program at NIFA or other kinds of programs. Other things to consider, are you eligible to apply for this program? Go and look back at the NOFO or this presentation at a later time to see on eligibility institutions. Another thing, do you understand the requirement from the NOFO? Sometimes it could be a lot of technical wording, but feel free to like go back, revise, and you can always reach out to us for any questions. Are you familiar with the application review of the process? Do you have all the needed resources? Example, like matching if it's required, qualify experienced staff, partners, and stakeholders to manage the whole project. These things that it could be asked a later time from our national program leader or AMD personnel. Some other tips for when you're writing, please make sure you write clearly and logically, organize the documents according to the NOFO and outline or to the evaluation criteria. This is going to be tremendously important because it's going to help also our panel, our reviewers, to help them assess your proposal. Also, please prepare. Another tip is to prepare budget with a strong justification. Follow the guidelines from the NOFO is very important. They are judged in degree of reasonableness. Make sure you provide this justification, so also it won't delay in the future for processing in our budget office. Obtain critical input from experienced and successful colleagues, maybe perhaps colleagues that already had gotten other awards at NIFA or in across USDA. This is going to be very important. Fill out the forms completely and correctly, also to not delay the process if it gets awarded or to be evaluated. Use tables and figures to help illustrate important points. Someone had a question about tables and figures, and we'll get to that answer here in the Q&A. And make sure you write for both the expert and the novice. Like make sure you write it in a way that the very experts are easy to understand, but also for someone who have never heard about extension programs, for example, or about your tribe that you're serving. Make sure you write towards both. Next slide, please. Another thing that you might want to consider, it has having a planning checklist. Application writing is a complex process and involves several steps, as you probably all very familiar. Planning for writing and applications need a strategic approach. So the planning checklist can help you identify and prioritize several steps. For example, locating the appropriate program, assembling your team, creating a timeline, completing all the required forms and registration. This is very important because it could be denied if you don't have all the proper forms. And so you want to make sure you complete all of the forms and the registration, complete requirement documents, editing, and converting them to PDF. That's a PDF version is something is very important for you to remember, because if it gets uploaded in a different format, our system gets an error and we don't get to open that file. And also another one is submitting on time. Next slide, please. Another checklist that will be probably very helpful is a document checklist, because there's way too many documents to keep track of and they are required. Application package may need several documents as mentioned in the NOFO. Janice went over them, and they're also going to be in the NOFO, the notification of funding opportunity. Make sure they complete an accurate application packages, help reviewing and understanding the intended project and its requirements. Create a list of documents needed for the NOFO. It's going to be very important. And mark the documents completed as you go along. The checklist will also help you when you are submitting the documents in the system, as you can mark them off when done. And some additional information. This is where you can use this link, and slides will be available and recording will be available in a later date. But you can use this NIFA reporting portal to find funded awards or previously funded awards, or they are currently existing projects. So you can get an idea what is currently been funded, and also you can just read current projects. Next slide. Other grant resources, if you go to our website, NIFA website, we have a lot of great resources for all of you. Like you can look at other funding opportunities, the competitive grants flow chart, and all of this have a direct link that you will be able to access, but you can go find all of these direct links as well in our NIFA website. We're going to have NIFA training resources, NIFA policy guide, indirect cost information, and a guide for preparation and submission of NIFA applications via grants.gov.
Thank you very much, Ara.
Mhm.
And I would also just like to add a couple additional things, I guess, to the tips or things to remember. Please remember that you are writing to the current USDA research priorities, and those were increasing profitability, expanding markets, protecting farms, promoting soil health, and improving human health. So these are some things that you are most definitely going to want to write to within your application. Okay, so that would be one thing. Also, with grants.gov, I do believe that when you go to submit your application, there is a way to use grants.gov. There's kind of like a check, and it will check your documents and it will tell you if you have any errors. Please look at that before you submit. So then that way, if there's anything that you have to change. For example, if you accidentally included an Excel spreadsheet for your budget, we need to have that in PDF, not in Excel. And if it is in Excel, and it's submitted, then the reviewers will not be able to review that. And so that is a big chunk, out of the evaluation criteria that we won't be able to review, which could then, put your proposal further down in the ranking. So just keep that in mind. So at this time, I would just like to say that both myself and Ara are here to answer any questions that you may have. And if you think of something later, um, please feel free to email to ask, because we're here to answer those questions. And if we don't know the answers, we can certainly find out what those answers are. And with that, we are going to open it up for questions. I do see that we have quite a few questions under the chat, so we will just get on with that, but also want to point out our non-discrimination statement as well before I turn off the PowerPoint.
Yes, Janice, are you able to see the questions in the chat or?
I am. Just let
Okay.
me bring that over so that I can look. Okay. So first, there were quite a few questions about completing science CV, the biosketch and current and pending, as far as who is considered key personnel. Okay, so you have a couple sections in grant.gov where you will list key personnel versus other personnel. So anyone that goes up into that key personnel will need a biosketch and the current and pending. So that, for example, would be a project director, would potentially be a co-PI. The other thing, so a report site administrator does not need to complete science CV unless, of course, they are listed as key personnel on the application. Um, Also, too, with that, I believe I saw a question in here about agents as key personnel. And agents may or may not be key personnel. I mean, of course, if they are going to be, doing the work of the FRTEP, then I would say they are probably key personnel, and that should be submitted. But most definitely, those listed under the key personnel section of the application should complete things in Science CV. It's not overly difficult, but it does take a while to get that, to register for that, and then to re-upload all of your copy and paste all of your information into that. So, like I said, you'll want to start on that sooner rather than later.
We have a
Okay.
question right after that one. Haiti, should the tables and figures be part of the project narrative or go into other attachments?
It really kind of depends, Heidi. You have a 15-page limit for the project narrative, plus 3 additional pages for tables and figures. So if you can do the whole thing, in that 15-page limit, then I would definitely say you can keep it all together. However, if your project narrative is 15 pages, you may need an extra page or so to go into other attachments. So it really is up to you and how you are writing. Okay, and Deanna asks if we're serving multiple tribes, do we reference all tribes? So I would say with that, so I do believe, that with your project or with some of the projects, especially in Alaska or other places, there may be, for example, where we talk about, let's say, United Tribes or, the Tanana Chiefs Conference, which would talk about all of the tribes that you work with. But then probably somewhere, it may be, in the project narrative where you would actually, list out the main tribes that you're going to be working with. And Jason asks if the slideshow will be made available. Yes, and we can certainly send out the slideshow. I did see one little typo that I'm going to fix, but other than that, yes, we will send it out. We will also have the presentation. It will be available through USDA's YouTube channel. So as soon as that is available, we'll also send the link out for that. Okay, and I think that takes care of some of the first ones. We also have another question. When it comes to specific line items, for example, under materials and supplies, if our farm to school program is going to put in 5 school gardens and need $2,000 in seeds and live plant starts, um, do we say $25 in live tomato? I don't think you need to go in that much detail, but it would be a good idea under materials and supplies to, list that you're going to have that $2,000 and, you will have, live plant seeds. So you can list all of those things without having, um, everything have a dollar amount. Okay. Now, the one thing, though, that I would suggest is that if this part, for example, these school gardens, if you're going to have other materials and supplies that are going towards, other projects that you're doing, I might consider putting just the amount for the school gardens under, let's say, other one, because then that way you can title other one school gardens, you can list your total, and then, give examples of what is going to go in there. So, when it comes to travel, I would definitely itemize. Okay, so definitely itemize as far as, your travel expenses, mileage, airfare, rental car, your lodging, um, your per diem. I would definitely, write that out. That's going to be important. But as far as the, the little, nitty gritty of the rest of it, I think we're fine with just kind of giving some examples of what goes in there. Okay, and then is there an option within the application process to upload an infographic related to an initiative referenced in the objective? Yeah, you can actually, you may, and that might be something where if you didn't want to include that right in the narrative, that would be something that you could reference and then include it as an attachment. Just make sure that it's in PDF format when you include that. Okay, so then in applying as a 1994, would this support our own extension program? Do you still need an MOU? Yes, you do need an MOU. Anyone that is applying to the FRTEP needs to have an MOU. And do also keep in mind, Wendy, that the FRTEP, this is a different program from the tribal college's extension program capacity applications. So you cannot submit the same project for both. Okay, so you will, if you're going to apply for both, the FRTEP has to be very specific, and do something completely different from what your current tribal college's extension program does. Okay, it has to reach, on, maybe a different area or a different something, but it has to be different in a way. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that if you want to set up a time to chat. And let's see, are the yearly required meetings to be in person? Yes, we are hoping so, that they will be required to be in person, although we do understand that there are always, things that come up. So during those meetings, such as like the former project director meetings that we had, in Florida, in Minnesota, there were some times where we were out and about, but there were also times when we could very easily have that broadcast, over the internet through Teams or Zoom. So we would definitely be able to do that, but we are most definitely hoping that we will continue on with the in-person on-site project directors meetings. Okay, does the logic model count toward the narrative page of the 3 pages, tables, and figures? I would say that if you're going to do a logic model, a table, I would I, you know, you can put that in the 3 pages. So essentially, if you think about it, between the project narrative and the tables and things that can be included, you really have 18 total pages that you could have under your project narrative. And so, yes, so that does count towards the limit because it is within the project narrative. Okay, Chamarita, I am not seeing the first part of your question. Would you like to come off mute and ask your question? Chamarita, are you still on? Okay. Let me see here. Um, Chumper, if we have historically been the only tribe in the state having a FRTEP project and another tribe applies as well, how would this be handled? Would this be considered multiple submissions from North Carolina State? It is not a multiple submission because it is a different tribe, then it is a different project. So, for example, there are other states that have multiple FRTEP projects with multiple tribes, but each one of the tribes are different. Each tribe has different needs, has different things that you're going to focus on. And so, no, that is not considered a multiple submission. A multiple submission would be if you submitted your FRTEP program, if you submitted your proposal to FRTEP, and then you submitted the same exact proposal to another USDA program to be funded. That is a multiple submission. Okay, and then let's see, Brenda, for planning travel, will we be returning to an in-person PD once again and Vegas update, or are we moving forward with only the Vegas? At this point in time, I I can't really answer that. Um, we are planning we are planning to have at least one in-person PD meeting. We don't know yet exactly what that looks like, but in your application, you will want to plan for at least one PD meeting. If you have additional questions about that, Brenda, please feel free to reach out and we can schedule a meeting for that. Okay, Chamarita, you can come off mute.
Hi, sorry about that. I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me, so I just logged back in and logged back out. Logged out and
Thank
logged
you.
back in. But my question was, previously, somebody had asked a question about if they service many tribes, and so I wanted to ask the question, we're located on a specific reservation, but since we're a tribal college, all of our students come from tribes around the country. So would I be able to list those tribes, or would I say specifically for the tribe that I'm located on?
So I believe with this, Chamarita, the memorandum of understanding needs to be for a tribe. So you would be working directly with a tribe, establishing the tribal extension office with a tribe. Okay, so it's not necessarily, this is not the same as the Tribal Colleges Extension Capacity Applications Program, which the NOFO has not yet been published for. That is yet forthcoming, where you would have your tribal colleges, where you would have your tribal extension office in conjunction with the college. So this is specifically working with a tribe. Um, Deanna's question, a lot of times, for example, in Alaska, they may work with the tribes, for example, Tanana Chiefs Conference, or the North tribes of the North Slope, of which, would be many tribes in that case. And so they are specifically then the North Slope tribes would have an MOU for working with them.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. I think I got everybody in the chat. Does anybody else have any other questions that I can answer now? Or as you're writing, please feel free to reach out. I will say that I will be a little bit delayed in responses. I do go on vacation next Thursday. I will be back in the office the day after Memorial Day. I will have some capability of answering cell service when we're out driving to town, but I'm going to be for the most part, not have access to cell service, actually. So, but I can most definitely answer questions, or, also if you would like, you can also copy any email questions to me to Ara, and she can help as well. Okay, let me see. Yes, Chamarita, this is going to be recorded for you to rewatch. So we will send out the site or the website web address as soon as it's ready. How many awards are we planning for? There's around 37, as Ara stated. And let me see. Will only one entity be awarded per tribe? Um, I think, well, yeah, yes. I mean, one entity, so yes, one entity will be awarded per tribe. Um, well, yes, more than likely, yes. That's kind of a usually what happens is we have one entity works with multiple tribes. It could be, that you could have, for example, one tribe and a tribal college and an 1862 organization both wish to work with that tribe. In that case, I would think that that would be a conversation, that you would have with the tribe, and potentially with the other institution you're both planning to apply. But I don't think that has happened yet, so I don't have a clear answer for that right now. Are there any other questions? Okay, is there a max on other attachments that we might be aware of? I wanted to add my logic model there. Leanne, I don't believe there is a max on other attachments. I will say that you want to make sure that the attachments are going to provide like meaningful context to your application. So most definitely, if you're including if you're going to have a logic model and you're going to include it in attachments, be sure that you have referenced that where it is. If you have letters of support that you are going to include. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do, for example, a letter of support from, someone who's taking your gardening classes unless there's, a really you're really highlighting that. But if you have support from some tribal organizations, make sure that you reference that in the narrative and then include it. So you always want to give the things that you are going to attach. You want to make sure that you provide some narrative for that. Okay, let's see. Anything else that we can help with right now?
I think that's it, Janice. We
Okay.
got a lot of thank yous, great
Wonderful.
information, a
Thank
lot of
you
thank you.
all so much. I very much appreciate all of you taking your time on a bit what is actually a very nice Friday afternoon here. And I do appreciate that you've taken your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And remember, those applications are due on June 8th. Okay, a little bit different. I know normally they're in on Fridays, but this is Monday, June 8th by 5 p.m. Eastern. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye.